Okay, hello everyone. This recording is coming out of schedule because, as much as I would love to keep to the schedule, sometimes when it comes to these opinion videos, I think sometimes the commentary just has to be timely. And yeah, that's what I'm trying to do with this. Obviously, I still have a video planned for tomorrow that's already in the works and everything. But this one is based off some form of breaking news that I saw not too long ago, I think max 1 or 2 hours ago, and I thought to just give this a recording while my thoughts were still fresh and everything, so that if I had pushed this to next week, and then I would have probably lost some train of thought that would have been relevant to the discussion. So what brought me to my recording isn't really the gravity of the news. I wouldn't say that I was particularly immersed in that whole space. Okay, before I even go further, obviously the news is, well, it's not obvious anyway, but my feed on social media has been spontaneously gridlocked by the news of Charlie Kirk's death. My understanding of Charlie Kirk is he is a professional communicator of ideas, essentially what some people would call a public speaker, a career debater, news person, I don't think so, but just commentator, public speaking person. But the selling point to him is that his framing, right? His framing, his viewpoints come from the pipeline of right-wing, conservative, traditionalists. I'm trying to really paint the picture of the kind of views he espoused. So yeah, that's who he was. You know, he apparently did tours, so that's where all the viral clips you would see once in a while from him would come from all these I think university campuses in the United States. He would go visit them and set up a pop-up interactions with some of the students, questioning some of their beliefs with his, and then also giving them responses based off of his right-wing point of view. So that's who he was. Obviously, I'm saying was because he's dead. So what brought me to the recording is I'm seeing a lot of comments like he died as a victim of the thing that he once defended. I don't know the extent to how nefarious his views were. I can only guess that when it comes to the issue of gun ownership, firearm ownership in the United States, there are people who are pro the Second Amendment, and then I won't even say there are people who are against the Second Amendment per se, because I did a quick Google search, Googled the anti-2A the anti-2A stance, and what I'm even seeing here is they're not necessarily against the Second Amendment. They're just for stricter access. So basically, no one is against the fact that you should be able to own guns in the United States. All right, it's just that you have one fraction saying no, let the laws be stricter, and then the other is saying let the laws for firearm access be more liberal. But they're all in the same net as far as I'm concerned. That said, like I said, I don't know the extent to how nefarious he might have been, but my assumption is that his points must have come from a point of guns are necessary for one's security and all of that. If that was his point, all right, if that was his point, and solely that, or things within that reasonable framework of protection, right? Because at the end of the day, why are people even having the discussion that civilians should have access to firearms? They believe it to be for protection. So if that was his framing, if that was his thought process, if that was his reasoning behind a more liberal access to firearm for civilians, then I don't think that irony, that comment of irony of life really fits his own case. That's what got me here to comment on whether or not that irony fits. However, assuming, right, he took it a step further and said maybe something charged, like guns should be used to exert certain ideologies. All right, so take, for example, what I believe to be the definition of fascism, which is the use of force to exert the opinions of a class or a singular entity. Quick demonstrative example, obviously I could give real-world examples of where fascism has occurred, but let's just do like a hypothetical. We have 4 tribes in a nation, let's call that nation A, and then we have 4 tribes, W, X, Y, and Z. Then we have the situation where W sees themselves as a superior tribe above X, Y, and Z. So fascism can occur in the sense that they strategically find means to subdue the legal rights of tribes X, Y, and Z, be it subdued at a blanket level, in essence making every other tribe beneath them at the same level, or creating a strata in the sense that you could say X is better than Y, Y is better than Z, but everything is still beneath tribe W, okay? So if he argued for something like the use of firearms as ammunition towards exerting force, like creating a forceful conversion of society to fit his own worldview, then yes, that would be the irony that people are commenting that it is. But then again, my belief, even if, fair enough, you can say people say outrageous things for money, for clicks and all of that, even if you could say that this person was nefarious, I don't think this person might have said that. I don't know the extent, right, yet. I just wanted to get this recorded as quickly as possible, while the thoughts are still rushing in, everything's just all natural, and yeah. So I don't know if that was the kind of thing he talked about or expressed in a want for explicitly. It could have been implicit, right? It could have been an implied kind of thing. I wouldn't be surprised to find commentary in that regard from him, but an explicit indication of using firearms as a means to an end, I have my doubts, but then again, I wouldn't put it past anybody, be it for monetary gain via clicks, be it for genuine interest in creating a fascist state. The parallel I want to draw from this, assuming, let's say hypothetically, he did engage in fascist ideas, the parallel that I want to draw is that with anything that we do, the kind of litmus test for some of the ideas we espouse, some of the ideas we promote, should be, okay, in the worst position of that system that I support, if I put myself in the worst position of that system I support, how would I feel? How would I cope? Take, for example, there's I won't call it a popular saying, but I hear it a lot around here. People say corruption isn't corruption if it favors me. You, as a citizen, bear the brunt of the corruption naturally, but as opposed to fighting against the corruption, or not necessarily fighting, at least condemning, at the bare minimum, the corruption, you find yourself striving towards being a beneficiary of the corruption. Okay, forgetting where you're coming from, forgetting even people who have it worse off, who are at the worst possible end of the corruption stick. So also in that same light, I have seen like a commentary piece recently on social media that challenged the audience to create a system. Just the leading prompt was just for the audience to create an economic system that could benefit the world, because at the end of the day, resources and distribution and all of that, all those things are economic in the economic sphere. So that was just the prompt, and then there was a pause, and then the follow-up question was, put yourself in the worst possible position in that economic system and tell me if you would want that system upheld. So naturally, the bulk of the people initially responded, oh, okay, capitalism is what works. Capitalism has given us so many good things. It promotes innovation. It sustains like a will to work hard and produce quality products. The competition creates opportunity for new jobs and all of that. Now, do this while being poor. You understand? There are things that are easy to defend when you are not poor. You don't even necessarily need to be rich. And by poor, I don't mean poor with a glimpse at the light of the end of it. Like poor in the sense that if your likelihood of becoming even near a supposed middle class were to be mathematically analyzed, it would be 90% impossible. That kind of poor. You understand? So do this while being that kind of poor. Espouse this kind of view while being that kind of poor. You could see that even if you want to force yourself to have some form of, idealistic view that you would still support, you would find that the taste of that view you once easily espoused is a lot heavier given the flip side. That isn't to say that there aren't people who don't have it well off, that don't promote the systems that keep them in those positions, okay? But then again, most of the time you find that these people who still defend their metaphorical chains, the ideas are products of like indoctrination, miseducation, misinterpretation of ideas, and just simple I won't call it delusion, but for the sake of argument, delusion. So, yeah, that's what I just wanted to say. Relating it to 3D as well, to the 3D art space, to the art space, digital art space, essentially, both physical artwork and digital artwork. You, as an artist, right? I'll describe a practical example so that I'm not talking too hypothetically. You are an artist. You are operating, let's say, for example, you create things on like a 3D social platform like IMVU, Second Life, right? And the bulk of your catalog on your shop is not just derivative but carbon copy of the IP of a real-life designer, for example. And then you are profiting. Not only are you profiting, right? Because you could make the argument that, okay, you just did this to get your bread and go off, all right? You are profiting and bragging and posing and praising yourself for your efforts. You understand? Fair enough. I know that to replicate things isn't an easy task, but then again, the value isn't necessarily in the arrangement of the pixels. The value is in the imitation. That's why you can have the confidence in some of the price tags that you're able to place on copied items, essentially. Yes, we understand, okay, no, down to the texturing, down to the structure, the shaping and everything, that was all man, but the IP is what we're talking about. Now, it's fun, it's good, you're enjoying your fun, you're enjoying your fame, until at some point You, on the other hand, would develop your own IP, your own unique designs and everything, and then just for you to see someone else in some other field won't be in the same 3D metaverse field. No, it could be in some other field. Take, for example, a sketch artist who is drawing dresses, but the dresses that they draw are your dresses. It's just that they're doing it in 3D and making their own fame and profit off of your own IP. All right, they haven't stolen anything from you. You adapted a physical product to a three-dimensional product. They adapted your three-dimensional product to a two-dimensional product. So you can see they haven't taken the exact product from you. All they did is just adapt it to something else. But you can imagine how you would feel, especially when you're not even credited for that. Even in the instance where you do credit, right? Did you have the permission beforehand? Did you get the green light beforehand from the originator of the IP? Not necessarily the product itself. No, the IP, the idea behind that. Even if it was unpublished, okay? Because some people I hear do very shady things where there's some meeting, they draft sketches, and then next thing is on the runway, the sketch artist doesn't even know, okay? So did you have the discussion with the fashion house that you are profiting off of indirectly? So that's just what I want to say right now. The ideas you have, the principles you stand by, the systems you support, if you put yourself in these parts of those systems that are least favorable to most people, would you still defend those systems? That's what I'm getting from this whole situation. It just kidnapped the entirety of my timeline. I just felt the need to jump on this recording and share my thoughts. If you support a system, an ideology, a theory, whatever you support, put yourself on the worst possible position in that whole space. And do you still support it? And also another thing is, are you also open to defending the kind of things you believe? Because one of the worst things, in my opinion, that someone can do is defend something for the sake of defending it alone. Basically, like a career devil's advocate. You become some form of apologist to your own idea. What, in my opinion, makes the idea strong is the metaphor of a candle in the wind. Your ideas are like the candle, and then conflicting ideas are like the wind. If your flame is strong enough, it will resist the wind. But if it's weak, easily the wind will carry it away. However, if then you take, for example, you're constantly reigniting the oil, shielding your flame from the wind in some way, then you aren't really holding it up to the wind. You are just grazing the wind, making it look like you are holding it up against the wind, but what you're doing is reinforcing your own flame without having your flame stand on its own. So that's just two takeaways I wanted to share. Don't support things that you wouldn't want to be at the short end of the stick. You could make the argument that everything leads to some form of inequality or some form of disadvantage for some sect of people. I can imagine that there isn't some utopian ideology as of right now, but who knows? If you have some idea in that form, let me know, all right? You can just comment it and let me know. But that said, even if in your own view, there would still be some inequality, misfortune, and downright bad position for some sect of society, what then are the measures that can still be in place to make life less of a living hell for such people? Then also the second thing is your ideas, your theories, the things that you define your life with, define your ideology with, your life ideology with, your working principles, your ethics, your ethical code, your creative principles. What can you do when it comes to an artistic space? What can you do when it comes to the creative space? What can you do when it comes to your work? Ethics, your moral code, okay? Is this just some moral code you have? You feel it's perfect, and then you're just going along with it? Are you resistant to scrutiny, or are you open to scrutiny given that you believe that your moral code is impenetrable and stands like the candle in the wind? So that's just what I wanted to say very quickly. We should still have another discussion tomorrow. Thank you for listening.